I have a British list from 11th Armoured Division, and after I painted it, I needed to know what decals to use on my vehicles. Turns out British Armoured Division vehicle markings are complex, so let me show you what I found when I was researching my list. Just keep in mind that not all divisions followed the rules. The markings outlined here are for Northwest Europe in 1944 and should just be used as a guide. The first British vehicle markings we should look at are divisional badges. Each division has their own divisional badge or formation sign. Guards Armoured Division have the all-seeing eye, an eye in a shield motif like this one on this Sherman here. My list is from 11th Armoured Division, whose formation sign is a yellow rectangle with a black bull. So the divisional badge identifies what division a vehicle belongs to in British units. This division sign usually appears on the front and back of the vehicle. The next common vehicle marking for British vehicles is the Arm of Service flash. This is a coloured rectangle with a number in it which denotes the arm of service and regiment of the unit. For example, the red 51 Arm of Service marking here indicates the senior armoured regiment of a British Armoured Division. The red is the armoured Arm of Service colour, and the 51 marking means the vehicle belongs to the senior regiment of the division. 52 is the 2nd Regiment, and 53 is the junior regiment. Brigade HQ vehicles would have a red 50 Arm of Service marking. Armoured divisions which had an attached motor battalion would mark that unit's vehicles with a red 54. Similarly, the HQ, Senior, 2nd and Junior infantry battalions in the infantry brigade in a British Armoured Division are indicated with a green rectangle with 60, 61, 62 and 63. Here this carrier has a green 63 Arm of Service marking, meaning it belongs to the Junior infantry battalion. Combined with the 11th Division division sign, we know this vehicle is from the 1st Herefords, the Junior infantry battalion of the 11th Armoured Division. Other Arm of Service flashes indicate other units within the division. The independent machine gun vehicles would be marked with a black 64 flash. Armoured Reconnaissance Regiment vehicles like Cromwell's Challengers and Comets are marked with a green over cobalt blue 45 flash. The Armoured Car Regiment vehicles have a 44 on a green over cobalt blue flash, with a white bar at the top indicating their divisional troops. Royal Artillery units in the division have a red over dark blue flash. The two Field Artillery units are marked 74 for the senior regiment and 76 for the junior. Generally, the senior regiment had self-propelled artillery like priests and sextons, while the junior regiment had 25-pounder towed guns. While the infantry units had their own anti-tank guns, generally 6-pounders, the division had an attached anti-tank regiment, usually equipped with heavier guns like 17-pounders. The division also had an attached light anti-aircraft unit equipped with 40mm Bofors AA guns. Vehicles in this unit were marked with 73. In all these units it was rare for any of the towed guns themselves to be marked with an Arm of Service flash. This was usually restricted to the unit's vehicles and on any self-propelled guns. So the Arm of Service flash could tell you what regiment a vehicle belonged to in the division, but there also needed to be markings to identify what troop or squadron the vehicle belonged to within the regiment. British units used tack signs, coloured diamonds, triangles, squares and circles to indicate the troop. Diamonds were HQ vehicles, triangles were A Squadron, squares were B Squadron and circles were C Squadron. Units which had a D Squadron used a vertical bar. Tack sign colours were red for the senior regiment, yellow for the 2nd regiment, blue for the junior regiment, and green for the motor battalion. Tack signs for Armoured Reconnaissance Regiment and Armoured Car Regiment vehicles were white. Tack signs were generally only used on vehicles in the Armoured Brigade, Armoured Reconnaissance and Armoured Car Regiments. Positioning varied between divisions, but tack signs generally appeared on the hull sides or turret and could include numbers identifying the vehicle within the squadron. Another common British vehicle marking is the bridging classification number. This is a number in a yellow circle which gives the vehicle's weight class rating. This was used so that at a glance vehicles could be assessed to make sure they didn't exceed the carrying capacity of a bridge. Shermans had a bridge classification of 30, while Sherman Fireflies like this one were a bit heavier and rated at class 33. Individual tanks and vehicles were identified using a War Department number. This was a letter and number code which uniquely identified a particular vehicle. Tanks and carriers War Department numbers started with T, and armoured cars and scout cars started with F, and so on. One of the markings that varied the most was the Allied star. Some vehicles had them on several surfaces while others had none at all. As a general rule, in late war the Allied star with inner circle markings were for air recognition and appeared on upper surfaces but never on canvas. The plain star was for placement on the sides of vehicles. So if we put these all together we can identify what markings we should put on our vehicles for British Armoured Divisions. If we take a look at this Cromwell, its divisional badge is the winged helmet of the Polish 1st Armoured Division. The arm of service flash is 45 green over cobalt blue, meaning it's from the Armoured Reconnaissance Regiment, in this case the 10th Mounted Rifle Regiment. The white triangle tack sign makes this an A Squadron tank. There is no bridge classification marking, but Cromwell's were rated as a 27, so a yellow circle with 27 would be appropriate here. The individual tank's War Department number is T190003. Cromwell's were also often marked with an Allied star in a circle on the turret top or engine deck, but we can't see that from here. So now we know what markings we need for our late war British Armoured Division vehicles and how to use them correctly. But where can you buy them? Battlefront sell a British late war Decals set BR946. These are not a complete set and have a mixture of division signs. If you're fielding vehicles from one particular division, you might find you run out of these pretty quickly. An alternative is DOMS Decals. These are available direct from DOMS Decals website. They include individual sheets for Allied stars, tank names and War Department numbers, tactical markings and turret numbers, as well as formation badges for lots of different British divisions. Depending on the number of vehicles you have to mark up, these might be a bit more comprehensive than Battlefront's decal set. There is a slight downside. DOMS decals are all printed on a single sheet, so each decal needs to be cut out individually. If using a couple of decals at a time, I found scoring the decal sheet with a hobby knife before cutting and soaking them meant they separated cleanly and avoided too much carrier film showing around the edges of the markings. The Plastic Soldier Company also make decal sets for British vehicles. These sets are for specific divisions and include divisional badges, arm of service markings, tack signs and bridge classification markings. There are no Allied stars or War Department numbers here, and the arm of service markings only cover Armoured Brigade, Armoured Reconnaissance, Armoured Car and some artillery units. Any other markings for motor battalion or infantry units would need to be sourced elsewhere, but this set might make a good starting point for a tank-heavy British Armoured Division list. So if you have a British force, hopefully this guide will help you understand how to mark your vehicles correctly. Happy decaling!